Hi, Penny. So good to see you today. How are you?
I'm great. Can we start that again?
Do you want to stop it and start it?
It was saying this meeting is being recorded when you said that.
So, do you want to stop it and then start again so you don't have to edit?
No, I'll edit it.
Yeah? Okay. Okay. Hi, Penny. So good to see you. How are you?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'm very happy to be seeing you and I'm looking forward to our chat today. I feel it's a spicy topic, sort of. And
Don't give anyone the wrong idea there.
well, spicy topic for the nerds in us. Okay, ladies and gents, we're not doing any sexy things except for the brain. So, we've been talking in the past about owning your power
Yes.
and owning to whatever and whoever one is, right? So, I want to take a sidestep today and talk about being in one's own presence and that perception of self. So let's start with that. What is being, you know, on one's own presence? Quite a mouthful.
Yes. Always ask these really difficult kind of questions because it can really, as you know, spiral out into interesting thoughts and ideas and experiences. And I think just winding it back to be in your own space, your own presence, is really to take pause from daily life. So and it like the TV's off, the radio's off. If you've got kids, they're at school. If you live with other people, maybe they're out, or maybe you can go out and sit on a park bench where it's kind of quiet. Although with with us all having a newfound freedom, the parks will be quite busy nowadays. But wherever that quiet physical space may be, and it's perhaps by starting for the novice or the those that are curious or not really spiritual or mediumistic or whatever, just starting at 0.1, just listen to your breath and just maybe pause and or even just focus on your breath, like literally breathing in and out. It is something we do unconsciously every day. We don't even think about it. But when you take 5 minutes even to just stop and put all of your attention, all of your focus towards your breath, and where are you breathing? Are you breathing up in your throat? Are you breathing in your chest? Are you breathing down into your tummy? Does your tummy rise and fall? And just taking notice of that and focusing on that. And it starts to bring you more into your own presence, and it brings you inward without it being a mental inward. It's being aware of you in a moment. And it also means you're not really focusing upon your thoughts because you're drawing your attention towards the breath and how you're breathing. And you might notice some changes as you do that. And you might notice your heartbeat, or just that you might notice that a little bit more. So just even turning your attention to your heartbeat and your breath and how you're breathing, and just being conscious of that, can really bring you into yourself, into your own space.
How does this process correlate with the perception of self and the perception of others of ourselves?
Oh, well, you see, perception is a whole different can of worms. So, because perception is your view. It's your perception is how you think, how you feel, how you act and react. It is how you interact with your senses, seeing, hearing, feeling, smelling, tasting, for example. And so nobody can tell you how you feel, can they? Nobody can tell you that they know exactly how you feel, because while we all feel human feelings like love and joy and sadness and grief and, you know, all kinds of other human emotions, nobody can really know how deeply that affects you, because it's your perception, it's your experience of that emotion, of that exchange with somebody else. And so by being aware of yourself in the sense of your physical being, your mental being, and your spirituality, helps you to start to be more, you know, in tune with your own perception of yourself and therefore others. So also perception is thoughts, and the thoughts that you have and how they, I mean, I'm sure most anyone listening will have had or still do have that uncontrolled perception of self sometimes, like, oh, I knew I shouldn't have done that. I'm always terrible at that. And what you're doing is you're just reinforcing something that instead of looking for ways to change your perception and turning it into a positive. And so I think that it's quite difficult to summarize in just a few minutes and a few words, but perception is something that is personal and individual, and how you process thoughts, feelings, and exchanges with other people and with nature. So, and the environment in which you are, whether it be living or working. So, you know, if you're working in an environment where there's lots of noise and all these sorts of things, then you're it's going to have an effect on you. Although some people don't mind lots of noise and others do. So it's your interaction with that and your perception thereof and how it affects you mentally and emotionally. Does that help, Andra?
I mean, it makes me wonder, how do we bridge the gap between being and perception?
Oh my goodness. I think instead of this cup of tea I need something else a bit stronger to have this conversation. So, being and perception. Well, I would say that perception is quite an active thing, whereas being is a passive thing. So to be is and being is to be present and not necessarily interacting in an active way with others, or this is how I'm perceiving what you're asking at this moment in time. So to me, to be in my own space, or to be aware of myself, is to turn my awareness and my focus in on my energy and my being. as opposed to being distracted by the noisy neighbors and getting frustrated and like, because my perception is they're really annoying. So, so do you see what I mean? So it's sort of like to be in your own, to be present and to be in your own presence means that it's like a cocooning. It's like to just be within that own self energy and not to be distracted by anything else. And whereas the perception of being perception, your awareness of other things and processing that is a more active thing. But if you're trying to ask me also about perception of spiritual things, and
You know it.
then that goes back to knowing and understanding what is you and knowing and understanding what is outside of you. So you would have to have that sense and knowledge of what is your energy, what is your thoughts, what is within, and what is coming in from outside of that space. And not everybody's going to be able to do it, and some people are going to do it better than others. I think we've kind of talked about this before. I'm not going to be an F1 driver, but I fancy it. So so there's things like that we have to consider as well, but it starts with understanding what is you and acknowledging what's outside of you. And you can start to, once you've done that sort of breath work or that focusing inward to get an awareness of your own space, your own energy, to then sort of turn your awareness. So I think your terminology of perception is what I would call awareness, as opposed to perception, because perception is things that we receive and digest. So perhaps there's a little bit of terminology here that I've got my wires crossed on in your initial question, but our awareness would then would be outside of ourselves to then sense the energy of someone else or something else, and also to be aware of that inspiration that comes, whether it be from your higher self, whether it be from a loved one in the spirit world, which gives you a feeling of inspiration or being inspired, or it comes with an energy, it comes with a feeling that is different to your normal everyday processing of information in the five senses of smelling, hearing, tasting, touching, etc.
It's curious you mentioned that, because I was thinking that for those starting off in mediumship, for example, it might be quite a curious experience to feel these things or acknowledge these things for the first time. And it, as with all change processes, I doubt it's comfortable. So what would you advise in terms of navigating this experience, so that, instead of bettering you from trying or becoming better, to motivate you to strive for better?
Well, this goes back to our mind works in mysterious ways, and there's a lot more to it than I understand, and I think there's a lot more to our mind and its functioning than scientists understand. But with with a lot of what we do as psychics or mediums is we are, for all intents purposes, we're quietening down the logical mind, the aspects of which get processed through the brain, but we're quietening down that doubting Thomas mind. We're quietening down the logical mind, the mind that wants to say, oh, it was just the wind, or it was just this, or it was just that, and so on and so forth. So you quiet down that uncontrolled thought mind. And one of the ways to do that is to practice meditation. So by practicing meditation, or even just to focus in on your own breath, to turn your awareness, to turn your attention towards a thing, means that you're not allowing that uncontrolled monkey mind chatterbox that's like, oh, you know, a song comes on and you start thinking, it brings back memories, and you're thinking about that, and then you think about something else, and you like think about something else, and you're thinking about what you're going to have for dinner, and you're thinking this and you're thinking that. And if anyone was in my head, it they'd want to run. I mean, the way your mind bounces, if you start to pay attention to your own thoughts, you will start to realize that they are unchained. There is no like there's a certain amount of logicizing, but there is no logic to some of it, because it's just this uncontrolled thoughts that are just going a million miles an hour. Maybe saying, you know, you've really put on weight, you really should get back to the gym. Oh yes, but I like drinking wine, so I'm not going to do that. Oh well, then I have to put up with having a bit of a paunchy belly then. And you know, you go through these thoughts like randomly without really thinking, and when you start to pay attention to it, you realize that it's a waste of energy. And when you then focus on those thoughts that you're having, you can then start to make them more positive. Well, I like drinking wine, but I can also go for a walk, and then that will help to counteract it, and I can have a bit of everything, you know. So and so it's taming the unchained mind, shall we say. And then when you've got a bit more control over those unchained thoughts, you can master your mind, you can turn your focus, you can turn your awareness at will. Then you will be more open to the inspiration, you will be more open, you will be able to more easily sit quietly and comfortably in your own presence, without needing distraction, without needing those unchained thoughts running at a million miles an hour, without thinking, well, I'm bored, this is hard, I don't want to do it, you know. And so then and actually when you get to a certain point, you start to crave that 5 minutes of just not focusing on anything, and you look forward to just like, can everybody please go away so I can just have this 5 minutes. So then it becomes a really positive thing, and then, you know, it's like turning the tide a little bit on that unchained mind, so that you get more balance, and you can be more in charge of creating that space and the right environment to be open to other things.
Taking this into the progressive soul, I would be tempted to say that being present and being comfortable in one's presence is something highly desirable. However, it's also one of those ever evolving aspects, perhaps, of personal development, if I can put it like that, because one thing settles, another emerges, seems to be in the laws of nature. So what would you say about that?
Well, I think, to me, and I may well have said this before, the progressive soul is about that, you know, constant progression and working on things and developing the self, whether it be in the mind, in the body, in spiritually, and constantly seeking to be a better human and to be a better person, and also to be more aware of one's own spirituality. And something that just dropped into my mind when you were sort of asking the question there was and talking about being in one's own presence. You know, if you're in a relationship, or you meet someone you're quite attracted to, and you first meet each other and you just can't stop exploring each other, in the sense of asking questions and getting to know each other and stuff. So it's pretty intensive question and answer, like me too and all this. And then there comes a time when you run out of new things to ask and what have you, when there are those silences. And I wonder, have you ever been in the presence of somebody, and it may not even be a romantic partner, it might just be a friendship, and there's that silence, and some people can't stand it, like they have to be making noise, they have to be talking, they have to be asking questions, they can't just sit and be together in each other's presence. And I think that's all part of it, that you should be comfortable in the presence of another, and it should be an empowering thing and a positive thing, not a like, well, I need to be really distracted and I'm going to distract the other person because clearly I can't handle being quiet, and I think it's really, I think it's enjoyable sometimes to be in the company of other people without speaking, because you can listen without talking.
Personally, I'm a huge fan of silences, and I think they give they're enormously generous spaces, if you ask me. I also know it's taken me a while to get comfortable with them, given the fact that I come from a very chatty society / culture type of thing. So perhaps it's also a matter of establishing boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we live in a society anyway where we're constantly being distracted, phones pinging and ponging, and somebody's liked something, somebody's cared about something, somebody's posted for the first time in ages. I mean, I try and turn off all those notifications because everything is demanding our attention. You put on a radio or a TV and it's like, then the commercials come on. It's like, I want your attention. I want to tell you about this bedding and this foam topper. And I'm going to keep talking until you listen to me. And, and it's just this constant bombardment on your senses, like I don't know about you, but I find it really uncomfortable to be like having electronic devices demanding my attention. And quite often, I mean, aside from being on Zoom quite often and turning off the sound of the phones and things, which I forgot to do for this session, but I've often forget to turn the sound back on again, and then I'll discover there were missed calls and things like that, and I quite like it. I like that I forget to turn the ringers, I call it the ringer-dinger, I like that I forget to turn it back on, because it means that I'm not driven to be driven mad by these devices. And I find I spend a lot of time at home without the TV, without the radio, without music and things on, because I kind of like to be in this whimsical, you know, yes, sure, sometimes my thoughts are a bit negative towards myself, but then I become aware of that, and I try to work on that, and I find life's a bit more peaceful, and I seek to find more peacefulness. And the place I live at the moment is becoming busier and busier and more crowded, and I'm leaving, and I'm glad I'm leaving for that reason, because it just feels too busy.
Yeah, I get that. I don't have any TV in our house, so I completely get that. It is quite blissful to have that quiet space. And I also acknowledge it's quite a privilege coming, from a very busy household where everybody demanded some space or some attention. I'm really grateful and appreciative of the quietness I have right now. But so wrapping up, how could we empower those who might not have this luxury to be in their own presence and be kind to themselves, even if they might not have the space necessarily?
Well, it's interesting you say that. How can we help others that don't have this luxury? I really feel that it is in the power of the individual, because it's empowering them to realize they have that power. They can turn their phone off. They are in control of that. They don't have to put the TV or the radio on. They are in control of that. If they live with other people, there is going to be times when everybody else is out. There will be those times. Or if everybody's at home, so long as you're not leaving children on their own. I don't advocate that, but if there's another responsible person around, take 5 minutes. If you've got a back garden, go out in the back garden and just take 5 minutes for yourself. Go for a walk. You don't have to be in utter silence in a monastery. You can, sure, there might be traffic, there might be other people that are going about their life and doing their things, but you can be in your own presence, in your own space, without those outside forces distracting you, if you have the want and if you have the will. And I think it's just important to recognize you do have the power, therefore you have the luxury. If you
Thank you, Penny. Thank you.